In this session, we'll discuss about mouse actions and also keyboard actions. Mouse and keyboard actions. So we can perform some actions using mouse, right? Like single click, single left click, right? And double click, right click. And we can drag some, if you wanted to actually, drag and drop something. Meaning like you can hold it with your left mouse click and you'll hold it like that till the target location, and once we release the left click, so the element will be placed there. That is called drag and drop. Like this we can perform multiple operations using our mouse, right? Mouse and keyboard are the input devices. So how do we actually automate this? So we perform many actions using mouse, right? So those actions, how do we automate those actions using Selenium? That we are gonna see in this session. And also, how do we perform keyboard actions? Using keyboard, we can pass some keys, right? So we have seen using send keys method, we have seen like we can provide a character sequence of characters, a string, right? But how do we provide, like, say for example, I wanted to press control key on my keyboard or shift key, alt key, like that. So how do we do that? How can we automate those keyboard actions using Selenium? Even that we are gonna discuss today in this session. So first, let's see mouse action. What are the different mouse actions we can automate? So we can do right click. We can do just mouse hover as well, right? Mouse hover is like if you just hover your mouse on something. So there could be some tooltip, right? You can hover on some menu, and then you'll get to see, like, for example, see, this is my mouse, right? Now, if you see, if I hover on this electronics or these computers, so once I hover, I'm not even clicking on this element. So once I hover on this, you see some elements in it, right? So again, I can hover on these elements. I'm not right clicking. I'm just hovering my mouse on these items, right? So this is called mouse hovering, right? So how do we even automate this mouse hover? So that we'll see now. So for example, there could be some tooltips as well. See, I have some button here, right? So hover me to see. So if I hover my mouse over this, so I get some text called you have hovered over the button. I can hover over this input field. I get you hovered over the text field. These are called tooltips. So it gives some information about that element, right? So we are doing nothing here. We are just placing our mouse over an element. So that's what we call it as mouse hover, right? So how do we automate that? We'll see that now. First one is mouse over. Let us understand how do we do that by creating an example itself. I'll, I'll create a new package. I'll call it as day33 and we'll create a new class. We'll call it as mouse over example. I'm creating a WebDriver instance and instantiating it to the Chrome browser. All right, now we will navigate to a particular URL where we'll mouse over on a tooltip. I'm going to take this URL and then we'll maximize it. Oh, we'll maximize it first. Manage dot. How do we maximize the window? Window dot maximize. All right. Now we wanted to mouse over on a button, right? So the particular button. So how do we do that? So in order to perform mouse actions or keyboard actions, so Selenium has provided us a special class. So that special class is called as actions. Action, right? New actions of, you need to pass the WebDriver instance to it. So you can see here, this actions, you need to import it from org.openqa.selenium.interactions package. So this actions class has been defined in this package. Just import using this statement. And now, and also remember to pass a WebDriver instance to this actions class. So once we have this actions object created, then we can use this to perform different mouse actions. Now, we wanted to hover on this element, right? So this is a button. So let's inspect this element, this button. Yeah. You can take the help of selector sub if you want. Driver dot find element xpath y dot xpath tooltip, right? So this is a mouse over button, right? So we'll use this. I'll call this as my mouse over button. This is a web element, right? All right. So this is a tooltip button. So we inspected this element. Now we just wanted to hover over on the button, right? So how do we do that? Using actions object, we can do that. So this is the element we wanted to mouse over on. And we are going to use this actions object. Actions dot, there's a method called. So if you see, when I press actions dot, so different objects are available. Click, single click, click by passing the web element on which we have to click and hold, right? Context click, all this, drag and drop, everything, right? So there are many methods in the actions class defined. So each method will perform one action, right? So now what we wanted to do, we wanted to move to element. We'll use move to element hover button, right? And if you see here, hover button dot will perform some action, right? So move to element is a method which actually moves our cursor, mouse cursor to a particular web element, target web element. So this is my target web element. So once we launch this URL in a Chrome browser, right? So mouse cursor could be at any location, but I wanted my mouse to be hovered on a particular element. So what's that element? This hover button. That's what we have provided as a parameter to a method called move to element. Move to element actually moves the cursor to a particular target element, right? And then what we need to do here, once we move it to this place, so we need to actually call a method called build. Build actually creates the action. It creates an action, right? And then on top of this, so if you see here, build is returning action. So actions is different. Actions is a class. Build is returning an action object. Action is an interface. Action is an interface, right? So when we wanted to perform some action, so we call the actions method, then dot build is a method we need to call so that the action will be created. And then when we wanted to execute that action, so on top of that, we have a method called perform. Perform, right? Build dot perform. So when we say build, the action will be built, created, and when we say perform, the action will be executed, right? So this is how we need to actually perform the mouse action called mouse over. So let us execute it. So what did we do here? We just had this actions class defined. So this is new thing to us. So Selenium provided this class called actions, which we can use it to perform the mouse and keyboard actions. So this actions class in this context, so in this example, we wanted mouse over. So we use a method called moveToElement. And whatever element we wanted to move the cursor onto, we have provided that as a target web element. And then we have to use two methods, build and perform. Build is used to create the action. Perform is used to actually perform the action. So if you observe, navigate to the particular URL, it should maximize the window, and mouse cursor is somewhere. It has to mouse over on the particular web element. Let's write some statement here. Mouse over completed, something like that. And let me execute it again. Mouse over completed. It has to hover on this like this. It was too fast, I guess. So what we can do is dot button dot build perform, right? So we can add some sleep time here. And also you don't need to, so this is like, we can use build method, right? So I told you that, right? So in the same way, we can use directly call the perform method as well. So perform method itself will inbuilt call the build method, meaning when we call perform method to execute the action, so inside it, it will internally call the build method to create the action as well. So this was like earlier, we used to do like this, and there is a reason for building. So we'll discuss that later, but for now, we can even use it like this. Move to element, that is mouse over dot perform. Perform actually performs the action or executes the particular action. So this is mandatory. We need to actually use this perform after performing this action, right? So when you only call this perform method, only then the action will be executed. Yeah, you see, you hovered over the button, right? It actually hovered over the button, right? So in the same way, like if you wanted to hover on this text field, right? So this is a text field, and when if you wanted to hover on this text field, we can do that. For example, just hover on this input field just to find its, yeah, X path, and then you can use driver dot find element by dot X path. and we can capture this into a different web element. We can call this as over text field. It's a text field, right? And then using same actions class, move to element over text field dot perform. This is mouse over the text field. Mouse over the button. So it will be, I think it will be very faster. So what we can do is in between this action, let's wait some sleep time. We'll wait some time so that we'll see that in action, right? So it's simple. It's all about using the correct actions method to perform the right action, right? So first we create an instance of an actions class, and using that actions class, we can actually use a particular method to perform a specific action using the mouse or keyboard, right? So in this context, we are just hovering over the mouse. We are not even doing a click or a right click, any clicks, right? So we are just mouse hovering. Yeah, I think it hovered on both, but we were not able to see that clearly. So if you see here, it should hover on the first button and then it has to wait for 3 seconds. Then it can hover on the next field, text field. It's very slow today. Yeah, you can see you hovered over the button, right? And then after 3 seconds, yeah, it hovered over the text field, right? So this is how we can automate the mouse over action. So the only thing to be noted here is we do have something called actions class. We need to create the instance of actions, and you need to know that which method to be used to mouse over, right? So move to element. And one thing is perform. You have to call the perform method. Only then the action will be performed, right? So that's how you actually mouse over, right? On a particular web element. Now, okay, let me put it here. What do you use? Move to element and the target element, right? Now, let us see double click. How do we do double click? Or how do we actually do a right click first? So how do we do automate right click? So let us see that. So what is right click? So you on your mouse, you do a right click, right? Like this. Then you might get some context menu. So we can even call this as context click. Right click or context click. Both are same. So when you do some that action, right click, so you get some options here. This is called context menu. Say for example, I click on this edit. So I get some alert here. In this case, click at edit, right? So you can accept this alert if you want, right? If you wanted to press any other, it just says click or cut like this. So this we wanted to automate. So how do you do that? Let's see that now. This is called right click action, right? So I'll create a class. I'll call it as right click action or right click example. Just in the interest of time, I'll just copy these 3 lines. So We are creating a WebDriver instance and then navigating to a particular URL, maximizing the window. Then we have to find the element. Driver.findElement by.xpath. So how do we actually inspect this element? Right click me, right? So it says right click me, right? So if I right click on this, I'm not getting the inspect element. So in that case, you just need to right click somewhere else just to bring up the DevTools window, and then click on this arrow and then mouse over on the web element which you wanted to inspect, right? So now you get the right click me or the web element, address of the web element, particular web element, right? So now you can copy the related XPath. All right. So this is a right click button, right? So I'll just call it as my right click button. It's a web element. We have a right click button now. All right. Now what we wanted to do, we wanted to perform the right click. So we need to create the actions class, right? So first, let's create the actions class even before this and pass the WebDriver instance to it. So once we do that, we'll have the actions object. We can use this actions object to perform the particular action. So in this case, it will be context click, and then pass the web element to it. And then don't forget to use the perform method. So perform method is used to execute the particular action, right? So only then the action will be performed. So all right. So once we do this, we get some context menu. We are getting the context menu, right? So we have to actually select one of these elements in this example. So when we say right click here, so we are getting some options, context menu, and we wanted to click on one of the options. Say for example, I'll click on the first option called edit, on the edit, right? So just mouse over on this. Right click on it and then, yeah, just show here and then take this related part. We wanted to click on it. Dot click. We clicked on edit, right? And then we wanted to accept that alert. Or, before accepting, let's actually capture the driver dot. So how do we actually, you know, focus WebDriver onto the alert? So we use switch to method, switch to dot alert dot get text. I wanted to get the text. Driver dot switch to dot alert dot get text. Right? All right. So once we click on it, so we get an alert. We wanted to read the text which is displayed on the alert, and also we wanted to accept that alert. So driver dot switch to dot alert dot accept. As we had only one option, okay, right? So we are accepting or closing the alert box by clicking on OK, right? So simple example. We created an actions instance here. Why we are creating that? We wanted to have right click on a particular web element. So this is the web element we wanted to right click on, right? So for that, we have to use a method called context click, and then we pass the target web element. And as this is a actions, some action, so we have to use a method at the end called perform, which actually executes the action. till here it is fine. This is all like particular to this example. So we are clicking on some particular context menu here, which is edit here in this case, and then we are getting, so we get an alert. So we wanted to accept that alert, and we also wanted to read the text from that alert. So this is what we did here. So we are getting some error here. What is this? Syntax error. Insert. Okay, we have to insert one more brace here. Drive.find element by dot XPath, right? So there are two braces. I had only one brace. All right, we have corrected that. Now let's see. It might be very fast. So after right click, right? So we'll add some wait time. Now let's execute it. Yeah, you can see right click edit and it clicked on edit, right? So it accepts the alert. Clicked edit is the text which is present on the alert, right? So yeah, we clicked on it and after that it waits. It waits for 3 seconds, right? So you can add this wait time anywhere after any line, right? So the only point to be noted here is, so in order to perform a right click button, so we definitely need to use this actions class anyway. We need to create the actions instance. So an actions object, right? So, and then use that object to call the method called contextClick. So right click, contextClick. So that you need to remember. So I'll put it here, contextClick and the target element. That is all about right click. So now let us see double click action. So how can we double click? How to perform double click action? So if you see here, we have different buttons here, right? So if you double click on it, so if I do single click, nothing happens, right? So if I double click on this button, I get some text here displayed, right? So I get some message here, right? So you can see that, right? So that we wanted to perform. So if I do a double click, I'll get a label here, right? So if I do a single click or right click, nothing happens, right? So this is what we wanted to automate now. So how do we actually perform the double click? We know we have a method called click, which actually is used to click on a button. That will be a single click, but this is a double click. So how do we actually uh, double click on a particular web element? That we'll see now, right? For that, what we can do is I'll just copy it, yeah, till here. These 4 lines. We'll create a new class. We'll call it as double click action. So now we'll use actions method called actions. So even before that, we need to, we need to inspect this button, right? We wanted to we wanted to perform some action called double click on that button. So we inspect that element first, and then delete to XPath, driver.find element, by dot XPath. Let's capture this into a web element object, which is called double click button. All right, now using this actions object, we'll perform some action on the particular web element. Actions dot double click of web element. So double click. So we should not forget to use the perform method, which upon only the action will be executed, right? So it is double click. Earlier for right click, it was context click, right? That's the only difference. So once we do that, what are we getting in this example? We get some label here, right? So let's actually print that label also. So this label We wanted to display it on the console. Get text, right? So let's actually print this on the console. So what did we do here? We navigated to a particular URL, and then we need the actions instance. So actions object of actions class, right? So we need an object of the actions class. So we created an object, and we need the button, right? On which we wanted to double click. So we had that button, we located that button, and using this actions object, we are calling a method called double click. There's a method called double click which can be used to perform the action called double click, right? And we have to mandatorily use the method called dot perform on the particular method on which we wanted to perform an action, right? So once you do this perform method, once you call this perform method, the particular action will be executed, right? Yeah. And just for our confirmation, we are just displaying that label whichever is displayed on this UI, right? So just for that confirmation, they have displaying this label, and that we are actually grabbing and printing it on the console. All right. So now let me execute this. Wait, okay. We did not change. We did not change the URL. It was the old URL itself. My bad. You have to navigate to a new URL in which the right click button or sorry, double click button is present. You have done a double click. All right. Now you can see you have done a double click. Right. So this is how you need to actually double click. Right. You can perform the double click operation. So using the method called double click. Right. Double click of target element. All right. So this is double click. You need to use a method called double click. Now let's actually see the next action. So that is drag and drop. So what is drag and drop? Let us understand with an example. So say for example, I have some website here, right? So if you see here, drag me to my target. So how do actually drag? What does drag even mean, right? So holding your left key on an element, right? So it's not a single click, it's not a double click, it's not even a right click, but it's you're holding using our mouse left click, right? So on the left side, you have the on the mouse, right? So you hold your left key, click, and then you'll not release it. You'll just hold it like that, and then till you are here onto this drop here web element, right? So just holding this element. So you have to take this to this here, and then release the left click, right? So then the text changes with the color also. It says drop. So earlier it just says drop here, right? So the text is drop here, and you are holding this, drag me to my target. And then how am I doing this is I'm holding my left click on my mouse and just dragging this onto this box, big box. So then I'll release the mouse click, left click, right? So this is what we mean by dragging and dropping. Dragging, that is using the left click. So we hold that web element, and then we just release that once we reach the target location. That is called drop. So we using left click, we hold it, and then once we reach the target location, we just release it so that the element will be dropped there at the target location, right? So this is what we mean by drag and drop. So how do we automate this? Let's see that. So for that, I'll create a new class. I'll call it as drag and drop. All right. So if you see here, so this is, so let's inspect this. So in order to actually drag and drop the element, right? So let's call this as a source element, and this can be called as target element, right? So, or we can call this as draggable element, and this is droppable element, right? So in order to do that, we have to actually inspect these elements, right? So we have to locate these elements. So if you see here, this element, if it is present in another frame, right? So it is present in an iframe, right? It's present in an iframe. So we have to first use WebDriver to switch to that particular frame, right? So let's do that. First, we have to use driver dot switch to dot frame, and then we'll use the web element. What's the web element we'll use? XPath. It's a web element, right? So we have to use the driver dot find element by dot. So we can use any attribute as well, right? So we can use class here. So it has class name. We can use this class name. It's called demo frame. So I'll use class name here. By dot class name. Because these elements are present within another frame. So we are actually switching to that frame, right? Now we have an actions object. Then we need to inspect these two elements. Now that we are within this frame, so we can actually inspect these elements. So this is called draggable. So I'll create an object find element dot by dot xpath. This is a draggable one. We can capture this into a web element. I'll call this as draggable. And then we'll inspect the next element where we wanted to drop the element, right? By dot xpath, and then the target element. This is the target element, right? Dropped. Or you can just refresh this. So this is how it looks like, right? So you need to inspect this. Droppable, and then we'll capture that into another element called droppable. All right. So draggable is a source location and droppable is the target location. Now we will use the actions object, actions dot. So there is a method called drag and drop. Drag and drop. You can see web element source, web element target. So what is our source? Draggable is our source. Droppable is our target. So using this drag and drop method, using this action class, we are performing some action. Perform. Right? So we have the draggable source object. So that will be dragged and will be dropped at the target location. Droppable is the target location. And we have to call the perform method in order to execute the action. So that is what we did here, right? Now, if you want, like, once you drop it, right? So it is dropped here, right? So just to confirm that it is dropped. So the text has been changed as dropped, right? So you can just get the text. it is under droppable, right? It is under droppable itself. So we can directly use the droppable also. Droppable, under it, we have it, drop, right? So directly we can use droppable as well. Droppable dot get text. Because it is present, the text itself is present in the droppable target element, right? So I'll capture this into string object. And if you want, you can add some validations as well, right? Like say, for example, my drop text. So you can just print it on the console, or if you want to add some validations, right? If my drop text equals, what is the drop? And then it has, yeah, it has exclamation as well. If it is this, I can say my drag and drop successful, right? What if it is not, right? So if you don't see the text, you can say that drag and drop failed. These are our validations. This is not mandatory, right? So only thing we need to look at here is drag and drop, this method. Drag and drop, pass it the source element and the target element. Source element will be, dragged and will be placed at the target location, right? And then we have to use a perform method to execute the action, right? After that, whatever you write, right? So you can just print the text, you can validate, it's up to us. This validation is not mandatory, right? Now let us see. Yeah, it was so fast, like it dragged and dropped it into the target element. And it says drag and drop successful, right? So if you wanted to see that in action, right? So then you can just add the wait time here before performing that action. You can maybe add your statement here, right? But I'm not doing that. So you can try it out. So drag and drop. So the whole point here is drag and drop this one. We have to use the method called drag and drop. Source element and then target element. Source element will be dropped onto the target element. That's what we call it as drag and drop. And for that, we have a method called drag and drop, right? Is that clear? Everything clear? Please confirm in the chat box. Okay, I'm taking it as it's clear and then proceeding. So let's see another example. Yeah. Now, if you see here, there's a slider, right? So how do you automate slider? So slider in the sense, I can actually do like this. Say for example, let me take a simple one. So this is a slider. This is a horizontal slider, right? So I can actually take this, hold this, and drag and drop. It is not like dragging and dropping somewhere else, but it's like horizontal slider. I can only slide it horizontally, right? And I can actually move it to some location within that horizontal track, right? So same is the case with vertical slider as well. So if you take vertical slider, so you might have seen this while you wanted to increase or reduce the volume, right? So if you see here, it's a slider. So you can hold this and you can move this to some other place, but within that vertical bar, right? Or vertical track. You can only do that using within that vertical bar. So that's the reason we call it as vertical slider. You can call this as vertical track, and you can actually move it like this, whatever place you wanted. This is horizontal slider, right? So how do you automate this? So earlier that is fine. Like we have seen drag and drop, we had source and target elements. But if you see, we have only one element. This slider we can inspect, but how do you move this? So we wanted to move this, right, forward in the horizontal slider, and vertical slider, we can move it up or down, right? But it's a source element. This is fine, but we don't have any target here, right? So if we have a target element, we'd have used the drag and drop method, pass two elements, source and target. But how do you automate in this case? So for this, there are multiple examples here. You can try it out as assignments. I'll show you one example. So if you see, this is a range slider. We have two, handles here. So let's call it as handle. So one handle is for the price range minimum. The second handle is for displaying the price range maximum range, right? Maybe this you will see in the e-commerce websites. So we will be having some filters, right? So they will ask you what is your price range. So in that case, you actually slide this. This is my minimum value, this is my maximum value, like that, right? So in that case, will be helpful. This slider will be helpful, right? And how do you even automate this? So you have to observe here. This is not like source and target here. These two are different handles. One handle is for setting the minimum value, and the other handle is used to set the maximum value, right? Two handles, different handles. So we wanted to move it like this, right? So each one is independent to itself. So when we are automating or performing some action on this, you can't do that at the same time. You can't actually handle the second one, second slider or second handle, right? So each one is independent. Now we wanted to check, like we wanted to set a minimum price and a maximum price. We just wanted to slide, move this, move this handle across this horizontal track, right? So how do you do that? So let's take an example of, so once you are navigated to this, right? So this is how it is. They are not there in their, at their, it's not like this in the starting position or end position. It's not like this, right? So by default, it was like 75, 300, right? So it's at $75, it is $300. So now what we'll do is we'll move this a bit like this. And then we'll also move this less. So we'll lessen this price. We'll bring it something like this, right? So we'll move it onto the left, the maximum handle, and the minimum handle, we'll move it to the right. So that we'll automate and see now. So we'll create a new class for that. I'll just call it as, this is slider, right? You can just call it as slider demo or slider example. I'll get these 4 lines here, and then we have to navigate to this particular URL. All right. Now, what did we do? We created a driver instance and then instantiated to the Chrome browser. So the Chrome browser will be launched. It will navigate to this particular URL. It will maximize the window, and we have created a actions object. All right. Again, like if you observe here, so this is again in a different frame. So we wanted to handle this, right? So if you click on this, there's a span tag. So this is for the first handle, and this is for the second handle. First handle is to set the minimum price. Second handle is for setting the maximum price. All right. Now, if you see here, it is there. This price or this slider itself is present in a different frame. You can see the class name of it is right, demo frame. So we have to switch it to that particular frame. So the name is also demo frame. So I'll just get it from the last. Sorry, last example. So y dot class name demo frame. So you can see the class name for it is also same demo frame, right? So we need to switch to that particular frame first, and then we created an actions object. All right. Now we need this handles, minimum slider and maximum slider, right? Let's inspect that. This is the minimum one, right? Now, if I click on this, it is, yeah, span one. So the minimum handle, it's actually focused, right? But just for, you know, just for our safety, so we can even include where it is coming from. This span is coming from some div tag, right? So this one, this div ID, slider range, right? Slider range, and then it has two spans. So we'll also better use this ID as well. So this ID, and then within it we have spans, two spans. See, both min span, sorry, min slider. You can even call it as slider as well. Min slider, max slider. So two are highlighted, right? So how do I get the min slider? Span of one. See, it is highlighted. If I wanted to get max slider, I'll have span of two, right? So this will be the XPath of it, right? So let's do driver dot find element y dot XPath. This will be your minimum slider, minimum price, min range slider or min price slider, anything. You can name it like this, min price slider. This is the web element. All right. Now driver dot find element. We need that handle as well. Second one, right? Find element y dot XPath. This will be span 2. This is maximum price slider. All right. Now we have min price slider, max price slider, and we wanted to actually move this minimum one to the right, some position right, and maximum we wanted to actually slide it to onto the left. So how do we do this? How do we even do this? Right. So we once we have this slider, right? So we can use these sliders actually to get the location of it, the initial location of it. So how do we get that? Is minimum price slider dot, we have a method called get location. So get location. So in order to understand this, so you need some basic understanding of the math here, right? So in mathematics, we used to have something called x-axis and y-axis. Now just concentrate only on this quadrant. We'll concentrate only on this quadrant. This one. Right? So because like this is y-axis, right? So this is y-axis, this is x-axis. Now this is a horizontal slider. So it is on the x-axis. So the initial position will be 0, 0, right? Now, so say for example, there is some point here. So this point will be having some location. So how this position is calculated is, so how far it is from y-axis, right? So it is on the y-axis. So from here, how much distance it is at the y-axis? Say for example, it is at the some 30 points to the top from the initial position, then 30. And from x-axis, so x-axis how it is calculated. So from here till here, what's the distance? Say for example, if it was 20, then we calculate its coordinates as 20, 30. So this point coordinates, how do we calculate is 20, 30, meaning it is 20 points or 20, 20 pixels, right? So something, some unit, 20 units. It is away from 20 units away from the x-axis and 30 units away from the y-axis is what we can calculate this point location as. Now, if I wanted to have this point here, so in our case, this point is not here. So it is on the x-axis itself, like this, right? Now, if I wanted to say, for example, it is a 20th location and y-axis is still 0, right? Because it's there on the y-axis itself, the slider. Now, I wanted to move it to the right. So, which will be increased? X-axis will be increased, right? So, if I wanted to move this slider to here, say for example, some 20 units, then it will be 40, 0, right? Say for example, I wanted to move it to the left. So the slider itself is here. The point itself is here at 40, 0. I wanted it to move it to the left. Then what we need to do? We need to decrement this value 40. Say for example, I will decrease it by 10. Then it will be 30, 0, right? And it will be moved here. Maybe exactly between 20 and 30, right? So then we have to decrease it. So when you wanted to move the slider to the right, so which if it is like which has a value of x as 20, then we have to increment this value. We have to increment this value. Increment this value by anything, any number. Then it will move to the right. Say for example, the slider itself on the right is on the right, right? Then you wanted to move it to the left. So it is at say for example 40, 0 or something like this, right? Then you need to decrease this value. Decrease this 40 by say for example 10, then 30, 0. Then in that case, it will actually move to the left, right? So this basic understanding we need to have when we are actually automating this slider, right? So now let's get back to our example. So this one, this slider, horizontal slider, we wanted to move it to the right. So we need to add some value to the x-axis, right? And this slider, max slider, we wanted to move it to the left. So we need to decrease this value. So, but how do we know these values first? So let's actually display the values. So I'll say initial position of minimum slider. Initial position of minimum price slider, right? And in the same way, initial position of max price slider. So there's a method called getLocation, which actually give you the coordinates, x-axis and y-axis coordinates, at which point that location is, at which point, that slider is. Using getLocation, we get that, right? Now, till here, let's actually verify. Yeah, this done. Now, if you go back, okay, we are getting some exception. No such element exception. Unable to locate element span 1. All right. So if you see here, this is correct, right? So according to us, if you go back, inspect this element, go to selector sub. So it is perfectly selecting this one, right? And span 2 is also correct. So we confirm that the elements are correct, right? So there is nothing incorrect here in path, in locators, Selenium locators, right? So this is correct. But still we are getting no such element exception. In this case, if you remember, while we are discussing Selenium wait commands, we have discussed, right? So there could be some, some delay in loading the elements, right? So in that case, we have to use Selenium wait command. So you can either use implicit wait, or in this case, it is failing at this particular point, right? So it is not about the loading. So it's about the presence of the element. The element was not located at that particular time. So in that case, we have to use the WebDriver wait, that is explicit wait, right? So we can use that explicit wait now. I'll just say WebDriver wait. We'll create an instance of WebDriver wait. Driver dot duration of I'll say some default of 10 seconds. We'll use this now. So finding the web element is implicit, right? So what we can do here is we can just replace this with wait dot until we have to have the condition, if you remember, while writing the explicit wait, right? So we have to specify the expected condition. Expected conditions dot presence of element located. Presence of element located. By dot XPath, right? We don't need to use the driver dot find element. It is an implicit action. So it actually finds the web element. So we have created an explicit wait object here, right? So we have created an instance of WebDriver wait and we are using until method. So this is how we actually create the explicit wait, if you remember. So we have to specify the condition. Here the specify the condition called presence of element located. So wait till this element is located on the DOM, right? That is what we have created. And this might happen for the second one as well, right? Second max price slider as well. So I'm just replacing it as well for this. All right. Now let us see. So when you get no such element exception, the first thing you have to verify is whether your locators, right? What are locators you are provided? So are that correct or not? Are those valid or not is what we need to validate first. If you think that if you are 100% sure that they are correct, then you have to see if there is any issue with the wait command. If it is there any issue with the page load. And if it is with the page load, then we will go with the implicit wait. Or if it is any particular issue with that particular web element, then we will go for the explicit wait. Yeah, in this case, we are not getting error. See, it just has provided the coordinates of the sliders as well. So min slider location is it seems. So if you see, it is 47. Maybe it is calculating from this frame. So it frame starts from here, right? So y-axis is this, I guess. So it is giving 47, right? But 47 is fixed if you observe for both the sliders, right? Because y-axis is same for them, but x-axis is different, right? X-axis like from left to right, simple. Y-axis from top to bottom or bottom to top, right? So 47 is fixed, where y coordinate is fixed, but there is a difference in x coordinate because the sliders have some distance in between them, right? So according to that, this x coordinate is calculated and the location has been displayed, right? So x coordinate, y coordinate. So this is the initial position. Now let us actually move the sliders. So the initial minimum slider, I wanted to move it onto the right. So how can we do that? We already have the actions object, right? So actions dot, so drag and drop by. So there is an option called drag and drop by, right? So drag and drop, actually the first method, if you see, we need to pass source and target, but which we have seen in the last example. We moved our source to the target location, draggable, droppable, right? Now we don't have target element, right? But how do we actually move it? We know we do have the coordinates, x-axis and y-axis, right? So we are going to use that now. So say for example, this is minimum price slider. I wanted to move it. So move it to some coordinates, some pixels onto the right. So in that case, I have to mention it. So it was 8447, right? So I remember it was 8447 for this. minimum slider. The initial position was this, right? And it was something, show view console. Okay, this was 341. All right. This is the initial position. Now, we wanted to move the minimum price slider to the right. So, we have to add some value to this. This 84, we need to add some value. So, say for example, 100. So, 100 is not like it is slider moves to 100 pixel or 100th, right? So, it actually moves 100 units from the initial position. So, it has to move something around close to 184 like that, right? But and y-axis, I don't want it to move it, right? So you can't even move it. It's a horizontal slider, right? So we'll keep it like that, same. And then the same we'll have it for the max slider as well. But in this case, I'm not gonna move it onto the right. I wanted to move it to the left. So on x-axis, so if you wanted to move it to the, this is x-axis, right? So if you wanted to move the slider to the left, right? So you have to decrement the value. So this will be 0, 0, right? Say for example, this is at 50th location. This is at the 10th location. Then if you wanted to move this to the right, then it will be, you need to add some value to it, right? If we wanted to move it to the left, then you need to subtract the value here, right? So you have to minus the units. Say for example, minus 20, then it will come to the 30th location, right? So now let's do that. So you need to, I wanted to move the max price slider to the left. So I'll move it maybe 50 units to the left. All right, now after moving, right, we wanted to see the positions. What are the positions of the sliders? So this is the new position of the min slider. This is the new position of the max slider. We are getting the locations of it. So if you see here, the point to be noted here is we use drag and drop by. It is by. So we have to specify the number of units it has to move onto the left or right, as it is a horizontal slider, right? So drag and drop by. Drag and drop by takes 3 parameters. The first parameter is the web element which we wanted to drag, and the second and third parameters are the x and y coordinates respectively, right? Now let us execute this. Oh, it will not work. We did not call the perform method, right? So perform method has to be called. So this is very common. We will forget like providing the perform method. Very common. When you are using actions instance, right? So you definitely need to call the perform method. Only then the action will be executed, or else it will not execute. For any method which is present in the actions class. So you need to perform, you need to call the method called perform. Yeah, you see, it has moved, it has come closer, right? So because the minimum slider, we have pushed it to onto the right, and the maximum slider, we have brought it to the left. Now you can see the new positions as well. See, it has actually moved it like some 101 position, like, and then this was actually moved some 50 positions onto the left. So this value has been decremented for the max slider, right? But if you observe, y coordinate is same for everywhere, right? Because it's a horizontal slider. You can't actually move it top to bottom. You can only move it to the left and right. So this is how you can actually, automate the sliders. This is particularly horizontal slider. We have seen horizontal slider. So as an assignment, you can actually automate the vertical slider. You have vertical slider as well here. So all these are examples for the sliders. You can try automating at least some of them, right? If you take the vertical slider, so this is very much similar to what we have seen now, right? Or vertical range slider. This is like very much similar. It is just about x-axis, x coordinate will be fixed and y coordinate will be differs, right? So the same example, you can use it. You might need to adjust this these elements, web element locators. And apart from that, you can use the same logic, right? Except that you'll actually add some value to the y-axis, y coordinate, and have the x coordinate as same, 0. You'll not add anything to the x, as you can't add it because it's a vertical slider. So you can take this as an assignment and work on this. Is that clear? How do you automate the sliders? Hope it is clear. Drag and drop by. It's not even source, it's just an element, right? Element x and y. We call this as offset, x offset and y offset. All right, now let's move on to the next example. So these are all like different mouse actions we can perform, right? So we have seen mouse over. So only thing you need to remember here is the method which we need to use for what action, what method we have to use. And also the actions are, also the methods are also like self-explanatory, right? And you don't need to, it doesn't, it is not that difficult to remember that. So mouse over, you have to mouse over in the sense you have to move the cursor, mouse to some other location, right? From the initial position. So it is move to element and the target element. Right click, we usually call it as context click, context menu like that. So it is a context click method. Double click, same method, right? Drag and drop, same drag and drop. Source and target. Slider, slider. So you'll have only one element. You don't have the target element. So you can only control it with the X offset or Y offset based on the whether it is horizontal slider or vertical slider. If it is an horizontal slider, you only increment this X coordinate, right? Offset. You'll have the X offset. If it is a vertical slider, you'll set only the Y offset. And you'll use the drag and drop by method, right? Instead of drag and drop. Drag and drop, you use it when we have source and target. Drag and drop by, we'll use it when we have only one element and we wanted to move it from left to right. It's a horizontal slider. We'll set the X offset. From top to bottom or bottom to top, it's a vertical slider. We'll set the Y offset. Drag and drop by, right? So it's called a slider. So this is all about, drag and drop. And these are all the different mouse actions we can perform using actions class in Selenium, right? Now we'll see keyboard actions. So what are keyboard actions? Say for example, I wanted to, perform some action on the keyboard. We have seen this, like we can actually input something, right? Something on the console using the send keys method that we have seen. Say for example, I wanted to type in something here, Selenium, right? So all this you can do it using the send keys method, we can do it. So we just need to inspect this web element and then use this send keys method to pass this string there. This we have seen, right? Now I wanted to perform something different. Say for example, there is another box on the right? So what I wanted to do, if I wanted to copy the text here, the same text, what we usually do manually, right? So I can place the cursor here, right? And can do using the keyboard, I'm saying, right? You will do Control A. I wanted to select complete C. Then I will do Control A, right? And then do Control C so that it is copied onto the clipboard. And then place the cursor onto the, or inspect the second web element, right? Or, manually you will click on the second web element, second text area, right? This is text area or text field, anything. And then you do Control B, right? Only then you can perform this copy and paste operation, right? So you can do it with the mouse, right click, copy, and then you can do, you can just place it here, right click, paste. You can do it with the mouse. but we wanted to perform some keyboard action here. So how do you do that? We have some text here. So we need to do Control A. The whole text will be selected. Control C, copied onto the clipboard, and then Control V onto the second web element. It is paste. Control V is paste, right? It is copied onto the second web element. So how do we automate all these actions? Let us see that now. I'm going to create a new class. We will call it as keyboard actions example. We created a WebDriver instance instantiated to the Chrome driver. So Chrome browser will be launched to navigate through this URL. It will maximize the window, right? Now we created it maximizes the window. Now we wanted to inspect this this source web element, right? Where we wanted to first enter some text into this, right? So this is a text area. See, this is a text area. Text. So what's the difference between text field and text area is text area, text field, you can enter a minimum length, like say, for example, only 100 characters, 128 characters, like that. Maximum 255 characters, like that. But text area will accept more values. See, you can see 80 columns and 20 rows. So if you wanted to enter some text like paragraphs or thousands of characters, then you'll declare that field as text area. Otherwise, it is same as like text field. The behavior is like same as text field. You can enter the text there, right? So this is text one. This is text two, right? So you can just get the relative XPath from here. Why we are inspecting this element? We wanted to pass some string into it. So I'll use send keys and I'll just say Selenium. Then we create an actions object. So this is mandatory. To perform any actions, we need the actions object. We have the actions object. All right. Now, what we wanted to simulate, right? Or what we wanted to perform using keyboard. So we have the text. Using send keys, we have had the text here. Now, what we wanted to do? We wanted to select this complete string. So how do you select it using keyboard? You do Control A, right? Then we wanted to copy Control C. And then you wanted to go to the second web element. You do tab. So once you do tab, so once you navigate, it will be like this first. So use send keys in the first web element to enter some text. All right. Now we wanted to copy it. So we do Control A, Control C, and then tab. Hit tab so that it actually points to the second web element or the right side text area box, second text area box. Then you do Control V. The text will be copied onto the second text area box, right? So this is what we wanted to automate now. So let's try to do that. So it has sequence of actions as well as three different actions, right? So first part, we have to press Control A, which actually selects all the text. So how do we do that? We use actions object dot. So Control A, right? So for that, so you have to what you are doing, holding control. You are holding control here, right? And then we need to press A. Once you do A, so it will be selected. The complete text will be selected. So, but if you observe, you are holding the key called control here, right? You are holding down the control key. So you will use a method called keyDown. Keydown. And what's the key you need to hold for this control, right? So there's a class called keys dot enum class. So called keys, which has different values in this enum. So called control. You can use control enum, control value here within this keys, right? Key down. See, if you observe key down, why you need to hold that control like that. So it's not like other keys. You just press it once and then you perform another action, right? So you have to hold it like that until you click on alphabet A, right? So it is called keyDown. Keydown is hold the control key like that, right? Keydown is holding the key like that. And what's the key here? Control key, right? So we use keys.control. Keys is a enum and it has the all keys in it. So we are using control here. All right. Now, what we wanted to do after holding control, we wanted to press A, right? So alphabets we know we can use send keys. Send keys A. Then what we need to do? Control A is done, right? So then you can release the control key now. So once you do control A, once the text is selected, the complete text is selected, you can just release the key, right? So for that, keyUp is a method you need to use. What's the keyUp? Again, keys.control. And finally, you have to use the perform method. Like for any other action, you use the perform method, right? So this is not an exception to that. Keyboard action also we need to, as this is an actions object, so definitely we need to use the perform method. So what did we do here? In order to select the complete text, right? So we need to do control A. So for that, we used a method called keyDown. Keydown is what you wanted to press, which key you wanted to press and hold it like that. That's called keyDown. So key and what key you wanted to do, you wanted to press control key, right? So control key, all the keys are present in a enum class called keys. So you are passing that as a parameter to this keyDown. So keyDown accepts parameter. KeyDown is a method which accepts a parameter where we need to pass the which key you wanted to press and hold it like that. So for that, I'm using keys enum dot, I'm specifying the which key we wanted to press and hold like that, right? Control. Then dot, we are using a method called send keys A. Then control is hold down like that, and then A will be selected, right? And then dot keyUp, in the sense like once you do that, what you wanted to do? You wanted to release the control key, right? So releasing is up. So your finger, when you press it, it has to go down, right? So key down. When you wanted to release, it has to come up, right? So you use the key up method. In the sense, like just release your finger on that control key is what you're saying here, right? So that's how we simulate the action, right? Control A. All right. Now, after this, what we wanted to do? We wanted to do control C. We wanted to copy it onto the select, or control C is copy text to clipboard, right? So for that, actions dot, again keyDown dot keys dot control, right? How do we copy the text to the clipboard? So we need to use the control C for that, right? Send keys C, and once you do that, you can release it. You can, your finger will be down, right? When you press on the control key, then you can release it, meaning you can bring it up. Keyup dot keys dot control. Not forget to call this perform method. So control is A is done to select the text. Control C is also done to copy the text to the clipboard, right? All right. Now we wanted to shift our focus onto the second text area. So if you are here, in order to go to the second text area or second web element, you need to press tab key on your keyboard. Tab. When I do tab, see the cursor is placed onto the second text area. So how do we actually do that? So we wanted to click on tab. Shift to second text area box. Actions dot keyDown keys dot. So we wanted to press tab, right? So there is a value called tab within the key in tab, right? And you just need to do it once, right? So keyDown, keyUp. There is no one straightforward like one method here. So we have to use keyDown and keyUp as well. KeyUp of keys dot tab. Dot perform. This is mandatory. So in order to press tab, we need to again use keyDown and keyUp. So that's a tab, right? So keys is a enum which has a value called tab. We have to use that. All right. Now it shifts the focus to the second text area. Now we need to perform. We wanted to paste the value. So for that we can use Control V, right? Paste the text. Actions dot. So Control V, right? So keyDown, keys dot control, control dot Control V, right? And then key up. You can now remove your finger on control. So how do you do that? Key up dot keys dot control dot perform. Right? This completes copying or Control V or pasting the value into the second text area. Just for our information, you can say copy using keyboard actions successful. So we wanted to mimic the keyboard actions, right, using Selenium. So how do we do that? So we know there's a class called actions, which we can actually use to perform the input IO operations, right? So actions class we use to perform different mouse actions until now. So we wanted to perform the keyboard actions as well. So how do we do that? Using the same actions object, actions dot. So we can, how do we actually select different keys? So keyboard is all about pressing the keys on the keyboard, right? So how do you press it? So till now, in order to provide some text, we used to use send keys method, which actually accepts a character of sequence of characters, right? Sequence of characters we used to pass. Now we wanted to select a particular keys like control key, tab, shift, like that. So how do we do that? So in that case, what did we do was, what we can do is actions dot, there are some methods called key down, which actually press down the particular key. We need to specify which key we wanted to press down. That we have specified. Then we can use send keys method to actually select some alphabet. For alphabets or characters, we can use the send keys, like how we used to do earlier, right? Send keys. Then dot key up. Key up in the sense, release your finger on the particular key. So till now you are holding down. You are holding down your control key, right? So you are releasing that key here. That's how you perform the control A. Same goes with control C as well. Same goes for control V as well, right? Control A selects the text, control C copy, control V paste. So this is a basic operation, but this is how you need to perform that, right? So these are a different sequence of actions if you observe, right? So this is not one action, right? So sequence of actions we are performing here using the actions object. So let us execute this and verify. Yeah, you can see it navigates to the particular URL. It has to maximize the window and then enter the text Selenium into the first text area box. It should be very slow. Yeah, Selenium. Yeah, and then you can see tab. It copied and it has pasted the text onto the right web element or right side text area box, right? So this is how you can actually automate the keyboard actions. Everything clear? Hope it is clear. Now So you use a keys enum class, right? That's the only new thing. And in order to key down in keyUp are the methods. I just mentioned that here. And now, yeah, you definitely need to practice it, right? So these are all like new things to us. So new things definitely needs practice. Upon practice, these are, very simple. Once you practice it, these are very simple, straightforward, right? These are all about the keyboard actions. Now, let us see one important interview question. So there is something called action as well, right? So there is something called action. So actions and action. So actions class. So actions is a class which is used to perform a series of complex interactions. So you can also use it for a sequence of actions, such as, at the same time you can drag, move, and, uh, place it somewhere like that. A series of actions can be done using the actions class on a particular web page, right? So that's what we can do it with the actions class. Whereas action is an interface. So actions is a class. I can mention it as is a class, right? To perform a series of complex interactions. You can also use it for a sequence of actions. Sequence of actions, right? Sequence of actions in the sense more than one action. You can perform using actions class. Whereas action, so we can call it as simply like, actions is used to build and execute a sequence of actions. Whereas action represents a single action. And it's like, and you don't need to use it. It's internally managed by actions class. The action is an interface. Is an interface and represents a single action and is typically managed by internally by actions class, right? So internally actions class uses the action itself because action is used to represent a single action, whereas we can use actions class object to perform series of actions or sequence of actions we can perform using the action class. So we can perform complex interactions as well using actions class. Whereas action, it's an interface which is used to represent a single action, right? So in most cases, we'll interact with actions class only. We'll use only actions class to manage and execute our actions, right? So the action interface is an internal representation. So action interface is an internal representation used by the actions class, right? So within the actions, the action will be used because it's a single action, right? So using this action itself, this action will work. So this actions has the internal logic, how this action has to be working, right? So we can use directly actions. We don't need to know that internal implementation of how action works, right? But you have to know that it's an interface and it represents a single actions, right? And it is managed by the actions class. So this you need to know. And actions class can be used to build and execute a sequence of actions. So we can perform series of complex interactions using the actions class. So that's a difference between actions class and action. Like, for example, I'll show you how you actually can perform it. Like, say, for example, you have something called, so this is like our double click example, I guess. Right click example. Okay. So actions versus action. So if you see actions, so there is nothing new till here. So if you see this actions class, we used it. This actions object, we use it. Context click, right? That is right click button dot build. So if you remember, we learned build and perform. So you can use build. Build is used to create the action, right? So it actually creates the action, right? And then we are, in order to perform or execute the action, right? Execute or complete the action, we can use the perform method. So if you see here, this build method itself is returning action object. So you're capturing it into the action object. And later, at the later point of time in the code, you wanted to perform after some actions, right? perform, then you can use this perform method, right? So build method. So it actually creates the action. That action you can actually capture that into an action object. And if you observe, so we are performing a single action here, right? So we can capture that into an action object, and later point of time we can use this perform method to perform the particular action, right? So to keep it simple, like in summary, you can, action represents a single action and it is managed internally by the action class. Actions is a different one. It actually performs a series of complex interactions, right? I have given a notes here, so you can go through it. So, but in most cases, like you'll be interacting with actions only to manage and execute the actions. So the action interface is an internal one, internal representation used by the actions to handle complex interactions. Actions is a class, action is an interface, right? Action is an interface which can be used to perform a single action, whereas actions can be used to perform series of complex interactions. It can perform a sequence of actions as well. That's the main difference. Is that clear? Any questions in today's topic? There are multiple examples, like for each action, we had one method and we have seen one example on each. So you just need to practice on all this. So the summary of it has been given here. So if you are preparing for the interviews, you can just go through these notes at a high level. How do you perform mouse actions and keyboard actions? Once you go through these notes also, you'll come to know during the interview preparation. You can just go through this. How do you perform all those actions? The corresponding method, and how do you perform keyboard actions like this. But uh, you need to practice it first to understand it, right? During the interview preparation, you can just go through these notes. All right then. If you have no questions, we can stop it here and we can meet in the next session.